Hello, everyone, and welcome to Reverse the Verse. Today is Friday, December 9th, 2016. Joining me to kick things off is none other than Bryan Brewer. Bryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy to have you here again. You're quite the regular.
I guess so.
So for those of you tuning in who may not know what's going on, this is our weekly live stream where we take questions from the community, mostly about Around the Verse, which is our weekly YouTube show that came out yesterday. And so joining me to kick things off is Bryan Brewer. Bryan, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, your title, and all that jazz?
My name is Bryan Brewer. I'm animation lead here in Austin. I started at the company pretty much day one back in January 2nd of 2013. Is right after the whole initial crowdfunded Kickstarter thing, and they had generated like $6 million, $7 million at that point.
So you're a bit of a veteran here.
I think when I signed on there at $6 million, and by the time that was like December, and by the time I started, it was like at 7 million, and there was a lot of naysayers out there. It's like, hey, what are you doing now that you're out of work? Oh, I'm going to go here and I'm going to work. I'm going to go to CIG. I'm going to climb here.
And you have a history with Chris, right? You worked with him even before that?
No. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to work with Chris Roberts. It's, I know a lot of guys who've worked with him in the past and worked on some of the Wing Commander and some of the other games. You can't. It's such a small industry. It's
true.
Everybody knows everybody. It's like the 6 degrees of bacon or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Half the QA team here I worked with when I was at Blizzard. It's
crazy. In fact, you're going to be bringing on Chris Smith in a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I've worked with that guy since 2006 and through across 3 different studios. So it's small industry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, guys, if you want to ask some questions, let's go ahead and get them flowing into the chat. You head over to robertspaceindustries.com. Make sure you're logged in. Click on Community, then click on Chat, and then preface all of your questions with the word question in brackets. You don't need to ask your question more than once because we have auto scroll turned off so we don't miss it at all. So while their questions are flowing in, I want to go ahead. Actually, we already have questions. Let's jump straight to these. Do fast exit animations include bailing out of the craft while in flight? We've only seen the landing pad ones.
Oh, well, if you mean ejecting, yeah, you can totally eject in space. As long as you're wearing a helmet, you don't die, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. What is the most complicated animation you have ever implemented into the game?
Most complicated animation. I have to think about that one. Everything has its own complexities, right?
Yeah.
And there's different ways of solving these problems. I'd say probably the most complex ones have to deal with the ships.
Yeah.
The way the ships animate, they're super challenging, just super challenging, because they're still building the ship half the time. You're getting the ship to animate it, and then they're changing things and renaming things, and pivots are getting moved, and it destroys your animation. So that's really challenging, just getting the ship animated and then getting the character animated on top of that, because characters got to get in the ship, right? Yeah. And I remember back when I did the Hornet, I believe Hannes did the first Hornet enter, maybe. I can't remember if it was him or if it was somebody from CG Bot.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I went in after I started and I touched up on the animation to make it a little bit nicer. And one of the things I did when you hopped in the Hornet is grab a hold of the yokes, and which meant when you grab a hold of it, it's animating with the character, and you got all this movement in it and everything like that. And it's like, hey, it's great until they decide to change something, and then it just completely destroys the animations and things don't line up, and you're like, why is this not lining up? And
so it's like a whole other layer there, because you don't just have to worry about the character, but then the ship's animating, and that's where metrics come into play, right? That helps a lot.
Totally, metrics come into play. One of the challenges that we have right now with our metrics, and again, things that are going to be challenging, one of our animators is doing all the sitting consoles. In order to get the character to sit in the sitting console and look natural, you actually have to pull the chair. Just like if you were like to sit at your desk, you don't just sit down at your desk and you're out like this. I'm working at my desk like this. You sit down and you gotta scoot up to your desk so then you work comfortably and naturally.
Lots of little details you don't really think about.
Yeah.
Same with getting out of it.
So what we need to do is we need to sit that character in the chair, and we need to slide that chair forward in order to have the character feel like they're naturally sitting in this workstation, we call them sitting consoles. But just computers. Like you go on the bridge of the Idris and you see all these AI navigating to these seats and sitting down and working these computers in the So how do we do that? We gotta sit them down. We gotta animate the prop to move forward with the same timing. We also don't want to create like 500 chair animations of them sliding forward. So we can't have a unique animation for each sit down animation. So what we do is we take all of what I had her Vanessa do. She was the one working on this. What I had her do is I had her take what's the average time of the character sit on the chair. That's when the chair starts to move forward. Make every character fit that template. It's basically an animation metric. So hopefully we only have to animate the chair twice, an enter and an exit.
Smart.
Right?
It's efficiency.
It's efficiency.
Saves a lot of time.
A lot of time. Memory. I mean, there are little bits of memory. It saves a little bit of memory, but it saves memory as well. The more we can reuse an animation, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another question for you. Will there be button, throttle, and joystick animations? Will we see buttons pushed, throttles and joysticks moved accordingly? I think the throttles and joystick thing we do have.
Yeah. So those are programmatic, right? So when you throttle forward or you're banking or whatever you're doing dogfighting, so what's happening is your character's hands are IK'd to that throttle.
What does IK stand for?
Inverse kinematics. Forward kinematics is I grab my arm, I move it. I grab my elbow, I move it. I grab my hand, I move it. That's forward, right?
You ever consider being a dancer? That's pretty good.
Sorry,
go on.
So what we want is we want inverse kinematics where you grab the end and you pull it. And so I'm grabbing the hand and I'm pulling it out. So what happens is they grab a hold of the yoke and then IK turns on, which now the yoke's in control of the arm. So when you're flying with your joystick at home or your mouse and keyboard or however you're flying, when you're banking and everything, it's saying, hey, I'm going this way. Code says, hey, yoke, you're moving in this direction. And then because your character's hand is IK'd to it, it's being pulled with it. So again, back to metrics and making sure things work. If things don't fit and things are not built correct and things are not set up to fit with human proportions and human anatomy, when that thing goes forward, there's a chance that you can IK out, which is joint locking. You see the arm just kind of like stretch out like that. Looks really bad and ugly. So, but yeah, so those are things that we kind of have to watch out for.
Very interesting. So I'm going to reword this person's question a little bit. I'll go ahead and say, they said, more toilet animations, ? Like reading a magazine, looking around bored, whistling, maybe falling asleep. Now, while it may be a joke, I think there's a good question in here, which is, like Inception. Can you have an animation within an animation? For example, if I go and sit at a bar, like, can I then initiate another animation, like grabbing a drink or something like that?
Absolutely. We're actually working on that right now. There's a little hitch in the AI code, if I'm remembering correctly. Right now we're having a little bit of trouble. We can get into this usable. We can sit down to sit at the bar or at a mess hall table or on the toilet. And then you can play a series of animations within that. But if you want to do something else, for example, a work zone, like we have these AIs walking around ships and they want to go up to this, we call them work zones. Really, they're like, it could be anything. It could be a damaged panel. It could be like something that a little AI has to repair or fix. So they walk up, they're going to enter this, they're going to like look around, they got some fixing animations, but then if they want to do something like pull out our paw tool, which is like a welding tool, now they have to go into a whole different state of like, I'm going to grab this usable, and I'm going to use this usable and weld, I'm going to holster that usable, and then I'm going to maybe grab another usable like a data pad, pull it out, and analyze, put it back, maybe fix on, so there's this whole series of things that the AI will be able to do within this work zone. And we have all these animations. It's right now we're just trying to work on the code to allow AI to navigate and do a plethora of things within this usable. So sitting on the toilet, absolutely. Sitting toilet Moby glass, nothing better than checking Facebook on your wrist whenever.
You had to go there. I tried to clean up the question a bit and make it a little more. Yeah, okay. So here's another good one. Many emotes have multiple variations. Like there's dance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Will we see a lot of variations for entry and exit of ships and stuff like that? I mean, I think we showed in this week's episode actually the combat speed exits. What else is there?
No, I think that's pretty much it. You kind of have like 3 speeds, right? You kind of have think of it as like a walk, jog, run.
Yeah, so there's the emergency exits, which we haven't really shown yet.
Yeah, the emergency, I mean, they're flying. They're like, one actor actually broke his ankle or twisted his ankle or did something to his ankle really bad jumping. This guy's like a stunt guy too. We're like, I think Steve Bender was like, hey, do you really want that pad there? And the guy goes, yeah, it's okay. And he totally missed the pad kind of off center, and he hit it wrong, and he messed up his ankle.
I don't want to be insensitive, but that seems like a perfect opportunity to record mocap for the injured states.
Well, Dad is there, so I'm sure we could probably use that for something, right?
Oh, awesome. So let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. We have heard that you guys use full-size cockpits as a prop when doing mocap. Do you use any other interesting props?
Oh, yeah. Well, motion capture is very interesting. It's like in a movie, right? You build out you have these prop departments that build all these really cool things for the actors to use on set.
Yeah.
We use PVC pipe and duct tape and gaff tape and plywood and everything else imaginable. We use scaffolding for like climbing up onto stuff, and ladders that are strapped to it if you got to go up a ladder and things like that. I mean, if you want to do something on the fly, I want to do this. You go out there and you put out like a bucket and a piece of plywood, and you hammer it together. And you can do a lot with motion capture because you never see it, right? All you care about is the metric. Is it this high? Is it this wide? Is it this far out from this other thing?
Yeah. And there's I remember seeing we released the video for Andy Serkis a while back showing a lot of the Van Duel mocap.
Yeah.
And I mean they go all out with some of that stuff. Like they had him wired up so when we jump, he would like fly across the room.
Totally.
So that sounds really fun.
Totally do wire work. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Are we likely to see animations linked to chat input, like saying "Hi, mate" to someone would make your character do the hi or hello animation? That's probably more of a design question.
It's kind of a design question. I don't see why not, though. I mean, it's possible, right?
Absolutely. So how does planning for a mocap shoot work? You talk about doing such large quantities of animation captures. Who decides what goes on that massive list?
Well, a lot of it's production and whoever the upper echelon of management is at the time for that in particular feature. So they'll say, hey, we got to do, these are our goals that we got to hit by this release, or 3.0, or Gamescom, or PAX, or whatever thing that we're pushing forward, and say, these are what we want. What do we have in our current library of animations? If we have something that fits it, then we'll go and we'll draw from that and we'll make it work. And if it's not there, then we go, okay, these are what we need to shoot. And then we spend a lot of time actually saying, all right, because a lot of times you're not only thinking, what do I have to shoot? You have to think, how am I going to shoot this? If it's something that requires a metric, you have to make sure, okay, we got to go to a cafeteria line, and we got to get your tray, and you got to put on the thing and slide it down and grab the apple and your pie and put it on there and grab the tray and walk over and set it down because you want this incredible mess hall animation of like cool interactivity and stuff like that. So you got to think, all right, how big is this tray? How high is this thing? What are the elements that design needs to be able to hook this up? We need to enter this in particular line. Then how does it work from there? We've got a bartender scene coming up, and we're talking about how does the bartender function behind the bar? Well, we're going to have these zones, and these zones are going to be shot this way. And so you have this zone for mixed drinks. You're going to do the mixed drinks. You have this zone for taps. You're going to pour beer into a mug from a tap. And where is the glasses kept? The glasses are kept under here. We have to figure all this stuff out in advance before we can go to the stage, or we could just capture a bunch of stuff that can't be used, and we don't want to do that.
So pre-production is super important.
Pre-production is super important. To the point where, like, going back to your cockpits, like the full-size cockpits that these actors are jumping into for the cockpit for the ship animations, right? All that stuff was measured out, and it went to a prop master over at Imaginarium. Him and his team built out these really nice cockpits. I mean, they look like skeletons of like things that you're climbing up onto, but they build all that out, and then we show up and the actors show up and they
break their ankle
or they get on there and they play with it.
Yeah.
They figure out how to get in and get out, and then we shoot.
Awesome. So we're going to do one more question. The last question, I actually liked it. Where did it go? Did it just scroll up? No, there we go. Will all the current animation work being done, IK, etc., apply to the female model as well, or will she require a significant or minimal amount of additional work?
That's a good question. I think the goal is you want a male and female character that feel unique. You know, I've seen a lot of games in the past where they don't have the footprint that like we have, right? So the female shares the male skeleton, they share all the male animations. They do little tricks like offsetting the female with additives, so she's not flat foot, but she's like up on heels. But it never feels 100% natural. It always feels awkward and weird, and they look like guys walking around, really. Because unfortunately, half the time you're not working on a Tomb Raider game where the lead is a female character. You're working on a heavily populated male game where the guys are walking everywhere. Yeah. I've worked on a ton of games in the past where we really want to get a female in, and we just run out of time. There's not enough, there's not enough space. We've blown our footprint for data. But yes, so our goal is from now on, since we now have a female that works in game, is anything we do something on a guy, we want to do a certain animation or animation set on a male, we then quickly retarget to the female, which makes her functional in game. So now she's doing everything that the male can do. Sometimes it's kind of ugly animation because if they batch the retarget, it's never good to do something that extreme and just let it auto batch. You really want to go in there by hand and make it look good. But our goal is not necessarily just batch everything and she's going to play guy animations, but on a female skeleton, we're going to go in later and replace those animations with animation specifically shot for a female. Biggest problem is just time. I mean, it takes time. You see how long it takes for us to get all these male animations in game. Now multiply that by 2 if we want to do female. I don't think everything is going to be a unique female, version. I think there are going to be certain animations that we're not going to be able to, for whatever reason, shoot. So she'll be a male version of it, maybe a modified male version. So she feels a little more feminine walking around or doing whatever that task
Taking
is.
the time to do it right, though, so it feels really natural.
But for something like dancing, we have females dancing. We captured one of our actresses here did some really, really good female dances. Really want to get in. Well, right now the female plays male dances. The frat boy dances.
Which is fine. Which is fine because I might want to do these female dances. IRL.
Yeah, totally. Whatever. So as soon as we get an opportunity, as soon as we get some free time to go in and update the female with female animations, we're totally going to do that. Example, all these work zone animations I told you about, we shot them for the male and for the female. Yeah. We've done all the male. We've retargeted to the female. Female's functional. As soon as we get an opportunity, we're going to go grab what we shot for female and start replacing the animation that's already there.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I had a blast. We went over, but that's okay. We're making a pattern of that. I think it's more fun. So, guys, when we come back, we're going to sit down with lead vehicle artist Chris Smith. We'll see you in a minute.
It was slightly reworked a little while ago, but this time I was tasked with really bringing it up visually to match up with the rest of the ships. And on top of that, I was also tasked with doing a special livery version for that, which was called the Wildfire. Let's have a look. So here we have the new Hornets lined up, which are actually the original Hornets, but they've just been remodeled essentially. So really nothing changes on the model itself. Well, on the functionality or anything dimension-wise, everything stays the same. All I've done is basically go through and clean up the model itself, add our new modeling techniques with the palm detail and the new materials that we use, and basically bring the ship up to the level of our other current ships that we have in the game. So here you can get a good look at just how I changed it. It's a lot smoother. If you remember the old one, the textures aren't quite as clean like this. For example, I have the old model over here, and this kind of gives you a good visual standard of where it came from. So here's the old model, and here's the new model. And so as I did this model, the basic Hornet model is shared throughout all the variances. So all the other variances use the same mesh as the basic F7C. So here we have the new updated F7C model. Take a look at the bottom.
And we're back. Chris?
Hey,
thanks for
how's it going?
coming.
Thank you.
So let's waste no time at all and jump straight into these. So guys, you already know how to ask the questions. Go ahead and get them flowing in. Chris Smith is a vehicle 3D artist, so questions in relation to that will probably be the best chance of getting answered. So go ahead and get those flowing in. And sorry?
Anything ships.
Anything ships. Yes, anything ships. And while those art-wise, no, just design, just programming. No.
Yeah, only programming.
Only programming. No, don't do that. Art questions. And while those questions are flowing in, Chris, why don't you go ahead and catch up anybody who may not know who you are? Tell us a bit about what you've worked on and stuff like that.
Well, I'm Chris Smith. I'm a lead vehicle artist, a ship artist here in Austin, and been with the company since the beginning, pretty much. Kind of like Bryan, we came on here pretty early on, and I was hired to do the spaceships for this game, and so that's what I've been doing since.
That's awesome. So I think we've talked about this before, but just in case anybody is here for the first time or maybe missed that episode, what are some of the ships or ship series that you worked on specifically?
Well, more specifically, mainly I've worked on like the Hornet was the first one, then the 300i. I worked on the Constellation, the Mustang, M50. A lot of the smaller ones, but yeah, the Constellation is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, and that one was recent. And then after that, I think it was your most recent one, the F7A MK2.
Yes, I did the Mark II for the Hornet recently. That came out nice.
Yeah, a lot of people are really, really happy with it.
Thank you.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and jump right in and see what kind of question. So when I said, hey, I wanted you to come on the stream, I thought, I wonder how long it's going to take for somebody to ask. So we're just going to get it out of the way. When will the 300 series be getting its polish pass? That's a when question. You don't really have to answer. Yeah, you can say soon.
Soon. Yeah, very soon. I can tell you the F8 is sort of like gonna happen first, I think. But pretty much right after that, I'm gonna jump onto the 300 series.
Okay, awesome.
I can't wait for it myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know you're excited to revisit it.
Yeah. It's that one. I mean, that one's been a long time now. It's been about 2.5 years or 2 years. I don't know. Awesome. Seems a long time, but it's been a while for that one. And the one I recently did, the Hornet, the Mark I Hornet, was recently just kind of polished up and brought up to standards. That was a long time coming as well.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about that. So all of the new line of Hornets have just been, kind of updated or polished, right? So how is that process, taking an existing model and updating them, different than, let's say, the F7A MK2, right? Because was that a start from scratch, or so? Yeah. Tell me the differences.
Well, the main thing is it doesn't take quite as long. So like the F7A, the new one, the Mark II, was like from scratch. It was sort of like redesigned as I went. It was redesigned from scratch, and this one was merely taking the ship itself and making the mesh, cleaning up the mesh, cleaning up the UVs, adding smart normals, the palm detail, the new material buildup, and the way we sort of break up the materials now. It's set up for custom paints and stuff like that, and of course the new damage system and everything. So the Mark I Hornet, while it's still flyable, was still using a lot of old tech, and so that had to just be updated more or less. And while the new one was, again, you had to redesign it from scratch. So this one, I basically took the existing one and just modeled and updated it on top of it.
That's fantastic. And
so it was a little bit quicker. It goes quicker that way.
I don't have an earpiece in, but I've always wanted to do this. Hold on. Okay, this just in. I'm getting word. Yes, you will be able to upgrade to the newer Hornets that Chris just did. Sorry.
Oh, and also
Lando just messaged me. He was like, yeah, by the way, they can do it. Oh, sorry. Wait, I'm wrong. He's going to tell me how I was wrong. Oh, the upgrade is automatic. That's where I didn't get all the
upgrade.
details.
Yeah. Upgrade is automatic. I mean, your ship, and the new build will be.
So they're going to replace the original.
Correct. Yeah, there's no buying or anything.
You are all getting new models. You get a new model. You get a new model. Okay. Awesome.
And also the F7CM, which I think has been sort of a question.
Yes, that's actually one of the questions asked. Is the F7CM Super Hornet going to be remade as well?
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Well, and again, so we're sharing all these. The mesh is being shared throughout all the different variances, and it's a material swap mainly, and some added meshes on top, like the radar. For that version, and the S7CM is the same, but it's going to take a little bit more because we have like the double cockpit, the dual seat cockpit, and then some of the other features are modeled more and stretched out more. So that one is not quite a direct transfer like the other ones will, because I updated the S7C, which was our base model, and that just propagated to the other ones almost automatically just because I updated that mesh, with the new one. But the S7CM was using a completely new one, a different one. So I have to go in there separately and just update it, which will happen.
Okay, cool.
Eventually.
Here's another question. What is your favorite ship, and why is it the 350R?
I guess he assumes. And why is it the 350R?
No, what is your favorite ship?
What is my favorite ship? Good question. I haven't really thought. I mean, I like actually the new F7A. It's kind of I like that one a lot.
It's sexy for sure.
The 350R was awesome. It was always one of my favorites for sure, and it's going to be once it's redone. It's maybe goes back to the top of the list.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So we saw a lot of new paint jobs, especially at the anniversary live stream. Will there be additional paint options for the Hornets? We've seen, the tracker is like the blue and silver, and the Ghost is the dark colored. So now that you've redone them, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, like I said earlier, so we did the Wildfire version recently, which was part of in the lore and the story. There was a Wildfire version, and so we came out with that first, and that sort of is a start. It's sort of the beginning to show you like, hey, yes, eventually we'll be able to do other versions, just like we did this one with a custom decal and custom colors and stuff like that. So yes. Okay,
very cool. Very cool. As a ship artist, do you have any idea of what you'd like for the ship to look like after 4 or 5 generations, so you can make incremental updates each generation leading towards that ultimate design? So now we've introduced that, you can keep the older Hornet, and then there's the, the different generations of the 2015, 16, whatever. Do you guys think like 4 or 5 generations ahead, or does it kind of just evolve as you do it?
No, we're not quite. I don't think we're thinking quite that far ahead. We're at this moment thinking, let's just get this out.
Yeah, there's a lot of ships still to work on.
Yeah, there's still a lot of ships that we have to, make, that are still just the base ships that we have to release, and the Mark II was sort of, it was born out of the thought of like, hey, first we did the Constellation, redo, because it was just unflyable on the ship. So we had to redo that, which was a free upgrade.
Which was great, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And so the Mark II Hornet was like the first time we sort of thought of it that way, like, hey, the Hornet needs a redo. And I was sort of like, hey, I think the Hornet, that there's a way, it looked sort of old school and a little bit out of date compared to some of the other ships. So when we did the Mark II, we were like, well, let's keep the Mark II was, I think, more or less maybe going to replace the old one at first, but then we thought, let's keep the old one because a lot of people like the old one and the old style and everything. And since it is flyable, we'll just update it and make it, bring it up to standard. So then we just kind of thought of that, like, hey, let's make the Mark II, like the Mark II, be a new ship, like with updated lines and everything. So it was sort of born out of that, and we haven't really thought of, hey, we're gonna. I mean, since we have thought of that, now when the ship, when the game comes out and we keep updating, that's definitely now the possibility, right? We can just take a line and every year, or every other year, however it works, we update the line,
Awesome.
And at that point, we'll probably think about, design and stuff like that, because it's kind of nice because you can kind of base it off the old one. You can bring out something totally new, or you can update the lines, so there's a lot of options.
Fantastic. We got time for a few more. Were you able to reduce the poly count of the Hornet? Is the new model more resource efficient?
Yes, for sure. The new model is definitely a lot more efficient. That's part of the reason why we remodeled it and cleaned it up. The old process of the way we were doing things, before smart rolls, essentially, it's because we were using, it's called triple loops, like when you try to get a smooth edge, we were essentially using like an extra loop on every chamfer, and so that's all been eliminated. So it's definitely less polys, the material is more efficient.
And then it looks better. So that's really cool.
And it looks better.
So this one, I think we know the answer to, but let's just go ahead and say it anyways. Will the functionality of the ship change, or did you just work on aesthetics?
No, the functionality is not changing at all.
Okay.
All the ships will stay the same, and I've only worked on the aesthetics.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see, we got time for maybe one or two more. How will aging states affect ship models?
Well, it's something that's yet to sort of, been to be implemented by design. But yes, and we've set the materials up to have a wear and tear state. So as you're going out there and you're battle and you're flying, and you take damage, even damage, I think. But we also have like a dirt, slider in the material.
We also have that on like our FPS weapons as well too.
Yeah. You can just slide it down, and it makes the thing all grungy. Stuff's come, from the edges, and it makes it look like you've been out there for quite a while and collecting dust.
Awesome.
But I think that's definitely a future that's going to come online very soon.
Awesome. And so we will leave this with one last question, and this one's from me, and that's what's next. What do you got next in your pipeline?
Well, what's next is the 300i redo.
Yay!
F8 Lightning will be on my plate. I'm sticking with Anvil for a little bit, and one little thing in between, which I'm not sure if I can even announce it yet, but.
Oh man,
it's gonna be a boom boom.
No, not yet. Not yet. I think they got a hint from that though. All right, guys. So that was Reverse the Verse this week. Before we go, I want to give you guys a few community updates. First of all, the November's monthly report comes out next week. Also next week is our holiday live stream on December 16th. So make sure to tune into that at twitch.tv/StarCitizen. And also, this is our last ATV/RTV of the year. So we'll be back next year. So other than that, happy holidays, everybody, and we will see you in the verse.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, look at that guy.